The 1970 Hemi Cuda ran 12 second quarter miles on pump gas and scared insurance companies into bankruptcy. The 2025 Dodge Demon 170 runs 8s on street tires and costs less than a base Porsche 911. 55 years apart, both called the baddest Dodge ever built. Only one of them is right. This isn't about which one is faster. We already know the answer to that. This is about whether Dodge remembered what made the original Hemi cars legendary, or if they just built a numbers car that happens to wear the same badge. Because there's a difference between fast and fearsome. And that difference explains why one of these cars will be worth millions in 2080, while the other one probably won't. Let's start with what made the 1970 Hemi Cuda untouchable. It wasn't just the engine, though that 426 was a hand-assembled race motor that happened to be street legal. It was the whole package. You walked up to a Hemi Cuda in a parking lot, and you knew exactly what you were looking at. The shaker hood scoop vibrating with the engine. The stance, wider in the rear than the front because of those massive Goodyear Polyglas tires. The exhaust note that sounded like it was actively angry at the world. Plymouth only built 652 Hemi Cudas in 1970, not because they couldn't sell more, they absolutely could have. But building Hemi engines was expensive and time-consuming. Each one took 16 hours of hand assembly at Chrysler's Marine and Industrial Engine plant in Marysville, Michigan. They weren't building these on a normal production line. These were low-volume performance engines that lost money on every unit sold. The 426 Hemi made 425 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers were complete lies, and everybody knew it. The actual output was closer to 500 horsepower at the crank, maybe 550 with the right tuning. Chrysler underrated the numbers to keep insurance companies and NASCAR off their backs. But when Car and Driver tested a stock 1970 Hemi Cuda in April 1970, they ran 13.6 at 105 miles per hour. That was with street tires, pump gas, and a journalist who'd never driven the car before. Here's what that felt like. You're sitting at a stoplight in 1970. The Hemi is idling at 900 RPM, which is barely enough to keep it alive. The whole car is shaking because the camshaft is so aggressive it doesn't want to idle. You've got your foot on the brake and the clutch, and you can feel both pedals vibrating. The engine sounds like it's clearing its throat every few seconds. Light goes green, you dump the clutch at 3000 RPM because anything less and you'll bog. The rear tires break loose immediately, even with 425 pounds of torque trying to hook them up. The shaker scoop is violently shaking on top of the hood. The exhaust is so loud you can't hear the radio. You shift into second gear at 6,000 RPM, and the tires break loose again. Third gear, still spinning. By the time you hit fourth gear, you're doing 90 miles per hour, and you've covered maybe 8 seconds and an eighth of a mile. That's the experience. Not just fast, violent, aggressive. A car that felt like it was barely under control even when you were driving it perfectly. The Hemi Cuda didn't want to be street-driven. It wanted to be at the drag strip with slicks and racing fuel. Now let's talk about the 2025 Demon 170. 1,025 horsepower from a supercharged 6.2-liter Hemi V8. That's not underrated. That's actual dyno-proven output. Dodge isn't playing insurance games anymore. They're bragging about it. The Demon 170 will run an 8.91 second quarter mile at 151 miles per hour on factory Nitto Street tires. That's faster than most purpose-built drag cars from the 1970s, faster than pro stock cars from 1985. It's a production vehicle you can buy at a dealership, drive home, and immediately run 8s without changing a single bolt. Dodge engineered this thing specifically to dominate the quarter mile. It comes with a trans brake so you can load the transmission against the brakes for perfect launches. It has a launch control system that manages wheel spin better than any human driver could. The rear suspension is tuned for weight transfer, not comfort. The front seats are lightweight racing buckets. There's no back seat because Dodge wanted to save weight. This isn't a muscle car that happens to be fast. This is a drag racing machine that happens to be street legal. Here's what driving the Demon 170 feels like. You're sitting at a stoplight in 2025. The supercharged Hemi is idling at 700 RPM, smooth as a turbine. No shaking, no drama, no warning that you're sitting on 1,000 horsepower. The air conditioning is running. The stereo is playing. Everything feels normal. Light goes green. You mash the throttle and activate launch control. The computer drops the clutch packs inside the automatic transmission at exactly the right moment. The traction control system pulses the brakes on individual wheels to prevent spin. The supercharger whine drowns out the exhaust. You hit 60 miles per hour in 1.66 seconds, which is faster than falling off a cliff. Second gear, the tires are still hooked up because the computers are managing everything. Third gear, you're at 100 miles per hour. Fourth gear, you're at 130. You cross the quarter mile at 151, and the whole experience took less than 9 seconds. Then you drive it home in air-conditioned comfort. That's the difference. The 1970 Hemi Cuda felt like it was trying to kill you. The 2025 Demon 170 feels like a video game. But here's where it gets interesting. The Demon 170 is objectively better at everything. It's 4 seconds faster in the quarter mile. It stops better. It corners better. It gets better fuel economy. It won't overheat in traffic. It starts every time. It doesn't need to be tuned every 1,000 miles. By every measurable metric, the modern car is superior. So why does the 1970 Hemi Cuda sell for $2 million, while the Demon 170 sells for $96,000? It's not rarity. Dodge built 652 Hemi Cudas in 1970. They're building 3,000 Demon 170s. The old car isn't that much rarer. It's not performance. The Demon is faster everywhere, every time. It's not nostalgia, at least not entirely. Plenty of people buying Hemi Cudas today weren't even born in 1970. The real answer is risk. The 1970 Hemi Cuda represented genuine risk. Risk to build, risk to buy, risk to drive. Chrysler lost money on every Hemi engine they built. Buyers risked insurance cancellation and financial ruin. Drivers risked losing control every time they nailed the throttle. That risk created consequence. Every Hemi car was a statement. You weren't just buying transportation or even performance. You were buying into something that could genuinely ruin your life if you weren't careful. That consequence made the experience matter. The Demon 170 has no risk. Dodge makes profit on every unit. Buyers get normal insurance rates. Drivers have computers preventing mistakes. It's engineered to be safe, reliable, and accessible. That's good business. That's smart engineering. But it removes the consequence. Here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. The Demon 170 is the better car. It's faster, safer, more reliable, more comfortable, and more capable. If you want to go fast, buy the Demon. It will embarrass the Hemi Cuda every single time. But the Hemi Cuda is the more important car. It represents an era when automakers built things they probably shouldn't have, sold them to people who probably shouldn't have bought them, and those people drove them in ways they definitely shouldn't have. The whole thing was irresponsible, dangerous, and glorious. The Demon 170 is what happens when engineers get unlimited budgets and modern technology. The result is devastating performance in a package anyone can exploit. That's impressive. That's achievement. The Hemi Cuda is what happens when engineers say, screw it, let's build something crazy, and somehow convince accountants to approve it. The result is a car that scared its own manufacturer. That's legendary. Dodge is trying to bridge both worlds with the Demon 170. They kept the Hemi name, kept the supercharger whine, kept the drag strip focus. They even kept the manual transmission option on regular Challengers, though the Demon is automatic only because humans can't shift fast enough anymore. But they can't bridge the consequence gap. You can't engineer risk back into a modern car. Safety regulations won't allow it. Liability insurance won't allow it. Shareholders won't allow it. The 2025 Demon 170 has to be safe enough that Dodge's legal team will approve it. The 1970 Hemi Cuda just had to not explode during the factory test drive. That's not Dodge's fault. That's just reality. We don't build cars like we used to because we can't. Society won't let us. And honestly, that's probably for the best. Those old Hemi cars killed a lot of people. Inexperienced drivers with too much power and not enough technology to save them. The statistics from that era are ugly. But something got lost in translation. The Demon 170 is fast without being fearsome. It's capable without being challenging. It's impressive without being important. In 55 years, someone might restore a Demon 170 and bring it to a car show, and people will say, wow, that thing was quick. They won't say, I can't believe they sold that to the public. The Hemi Cuda still generates that reaction. You see one at a car show today, and your first thought is, how is this legal? That sense of disbelief is what creates value. Not the performance numbers, not the rarity, the sheer audacity of the thing existing. Dodge remembered the performance, they remembered the Hemi name, they remembered the drag strip heritage, but they couldn't remember the risk because risk isn't allowed anymore. So they built the fastest production car in straight line acceleration, and it's technically perfect, and it feels like a video game. The 1970 Hemi Cuda represents the end of an era when consequences mattered and cars could be dangerous. The 2025 Demon 170 represents the peak of what's possible when engineers have unlimited resources and modern technology. Both are the baddest Dodge ever built, just for completely different reasons. If you had to pick one, pick based on what you want. Want to go fast? Demon 170, no question. Want to own something that shouldn't exist? Hemi Cuda, if you can afford it. Want to know which one will matter more in 2080? Ask yourself which one people will still be talking about when 8-second quarter miles are considered slow. The answer tells you everything about what we lost and what we gained. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Old school fearsome or new school fast?